Hello, and welcome to the Dr. Elisa Show here on KUHS Denver, the stream. It's awesome to be with you again. I'm loving all the conversations we've been having. Hopefully you're loving my guests and the conversations that you're joining with. You can join the conversation at any time by going to the Facebook page, Dr. Elisa Show, or KUHS Denver, and on the Facebook page, and chatting with us in there. I've got them up live, so feel free to check in there. And you can, I'm not going to worry about you texting, but if you feel like it, on some shows, we can always have you do that. Let's just try the Facebook site today. So if it's your first time, thank you. If you're a repeat, thank you. I'm so excited. I've got a great show today, an amazing guest. But before I go there, I just want to check in. I know that this is like an exhausting time for us, for all of us. I think back to beginning of 2020, March, and we all thought this is a few months. And then we thought, oh, it's a year. And then we thought, oh, it's another. And here we are in like 2022 wondering what is going on. For this hour, try to put that down. Try to put down the fear, the anxiety, any of that. And let's just have a great conversation, okay? Let's focus on hope. Let's focus on gratitude, just for this time period. Just checking my technology, as you know I do, because thought I heard a rumble. Hopefully I didn't. Okay. Also, if you've been listening, you know that my book, Dark Fire, is up on Kindle. It is 99 cents. I would love it. It did hit the top 10 in its category for 5 full days, which is way exciting. There are a few books, actually, if you hit Dark Fire on Amazon, but if you go to Dark Fire, Elisa Robin, you'll just see the one book, and it is on Kindle. I'm getting great reviews from people, so I'm really excited about it. And I'm actually, if you purchase it and you let me know, you send me a direct message, email me, you can contact me, one of those many ways you can, I'll send you my little short class on how to learn to use a wine glass as a crystal ball. That's prominent in this book. It's prominent in my last book. It's something that I've actually taught classes on. It's something fun. So Dark Fire on Amazon, on Kindle. Hopefully the paperback will be out in a couple weeks. It's going to lag another couple weeks behind, I think. That's sort of my spiel. You know how I start, right? I just want to talk to you about that. I also want to remind you that the tagline for this show is Igniting a Renaissance of Spirit, and that we are spiritually multilingual in this show. So if you hear something and the word jars you, right? The word God jars you and you want to hear universal energy, just translate. Just use the other word that works for you. If I say something like meditation and you want to think prayer, go for it. Let's hang on to the meaning, to the intent beneath the verbiage and see where that takes us, because that's where we want to go. I think that helps us get to places of hope and places of gratitude without hanging up on the language. Because, that can be so difficult, and especially if we're translating from one language to another. Also, I want to remind you that, much like when I teach, if you leave this radio show with more questions than answers, more questions than you walked in with, it was a great show. Because that's how I teach. That's what my classes are about. How do I help you ignite a renaissance of spirit within yourself? And when you do that, often we feel challenged. We feel like we have more questions. Hopefully that's what we're going to do. So today I have this amazing, amazing guest. And as you know, I bring people on who've inspired me, and then I let them introduce themselves. So we're going to do the exact same thing. And this is a woman. I want you all to think back in time. At some point, you read a book called The Diary of Anne Frank. I read that book. I saw the play many times. And Otto Frank is the father in this book. And it never occurred to me that I could do more than read this book. And yet my guest today did much more than that. She was already an author. She already had media experience. She was already a writer, but she, in her heart, as a young kid, she already knew she was going to write. She already knew she was going to do something, and she wrote him. And they corresponded for many, many years and had a familial relationship, like a granddaughter-grandfather. And she's going to come talk about the lessons that she learned. So welcome to the show. Cara, introduce yourself. Give us, who are you, and talk to me about this amazing journey that you've taken.
Thank you so much, Elisa, to have me here, tell the story, as I feel that, we're all storytellers, as you are, we all are, and every one of us has a story to tell. And as you said, just briefly, when I was 12 years old, they had a nationwide, actually worldwide search to find the star of the movie, The Diary of Anne Frank.
Okay.
So they had talent scouts going all over the place. This was now, it was on Broadway. The book was very popular. And there was a talent scout that found me. I was 12 years old. I wasn't an author then, but I was very much a wordsmith. I loved writing and I loved reading. And so I looked a lot and as a child, and they picked me and said, would you like to go to 20th Century Fox and audition for the movie as far as Anne, of course, first. And I was so excited about that. But of course I went to 20th Century Fox, I auditioned. They didn't hire me. I wasn't in it. Millie Perkins, beautiful model Millie Perkins got there. But what that did, when I read that book, it got me so enchanted with her. I couldn't believe she actually died. Girl my age. I was just learning about all of that, the Holocaust, the horror of that. I lived in a bubble. I never knew of something so horrible. I kept thinking she really lived. No, she didn't. And so when I did the audition, and I said, was Otto Frank, there were 8 of them in hiding, as you know, and he was the only survivor. And I said, was Otto Frank still alive, the father? And they said, yes, he is. He's in Basel, Switzerland. I think you could give me his address, but I write to him. And so I did. I started, and I poured out my heart to this man. I just told him how much I loved him. I loved Anne. I identified so much with the story, and blah blah blah. These things, and then at the time, of course, these were letters. We weren't doing email back then. This was in the early 50s, and so it took forever. And then I finally got a response from him. I was so thrilled, and the letter was brief. Thank you for writing to me. I write to people all over the world. I can't get you ready to understand. Yes, I understood, but of course I said, I go and write to you, Mr. Frank. You don't have to answer me. So that's began our long, wonderful. We realized that was important.
So let me just say, and I'll let you go on, that the book, Tree of Hope, is the book about that relationship, right? And this is your new book. It's been out how long now?
It's just come out last year. It's the 4th of many I've had that are about him. This is the final book because it's the end chapter are the shared lessons that I learned from Otto Frank. I'm very excited about this book and the meaning behind it.
So I just want to make sure our readers get this, right? Cara Wilson-Granat, Tree of Hope. If you're on Facebook, I'm holding it up. If you're just listening, just do a search, Tree of Hope. Anne Frank's father.
On Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and others.
Good. So anywhere you can buy books like that online.
Yeah.
And I've read it now. I read it deeply, and then I read it quickly again, like to go through for the show, which is what I do, right, when I'm prepping for a show. And then started highlighting things and almost turned the entire book yellow. It's just like with the highlighting some of these thoughts. It's pretty amazing. So I'm still amazed that you thought to write him and that you kept writing him. I'm wondering what in you kind of pushed you to want that relationship.
That's a good question. Well, first of all, I was discouraged by others to say, they said, he's not going to write to you. He's a busy man.
Mm-hmm.
And with his second wife, Brittany, who we met coming back from the camps, so she was like my grandmother. I never knew my grandfather. I had one wonderful. He represented the sort of father figure, grandfather figure that I was missing. He, I had a father, he was a good, kind man, but this was something, a relationship that I longed for. I loved how he had such grace and with his daughters. He was such a beautiful father figure. He reminded me a lot of my other favorite book was To Kill a Mockingbird. To me, he was Atticus Finch.
Right.
And if I could have written Atticus Finch, I would. He was that. He was a wonderful, graceful man, and I felt I wanted so much to talk to him. I wanted to tell him who I was. I wanted his advice. I fell in love with him, and
wow.
And it didn't bother me that he said he was busy. I just wanted to talk to him.
So some persistence in there.
Yeah.
But I think having read this book, what you wanted was to express yourself. And then
Yes.
I think you walked into this with okay, if he doesn't write back, fine, but also an underlying sense of trust that he might. Right?
Absolutely. That's very good. And one of the things I encourage people, that's in the back of the book, some of the shared lessons. And what is that, I tell people I do that still now. I will write to somebody, knowing they probably will not write me back.
Mm-hmm.
But makes me feel so peaceful and good, courageous, or complete to be able to express myself to somebody that I love and admire,
Right.
whether I hear from them or not. I think so. I tell especially young people, write to everybody. We're all equal in this world. There isn't anybody who is a deity. We are here to help each other and to learn from each other. We're students and teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So write to everybody. You may not get that response. You'll feel good about yourself that you did it. And I did not know that he would write me back. And I didn't know if he'd write me back even after he said he wouldn't write me back. But he realized that I wanted to talk to him. And that's when I found out later. It was very typical of who he was. Because he did this for young people all over.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
Right. One, that the story, it's not amazing the story touched so many people. But it's amazing that is how he spent his life, was supporting young people who were moved by this story, which is horrible and hopeful, combined with, and like you said, at the end, there's a piece where you realize this is reality. This isn't fiction. She dies.
That's
the
right.
family dies in some horrific way. And
at 12, I didn't know about anything like that.
Right.
And I didn't know. I thought it was a story. She couldn't have died.
Right.
And
Yeah. And I know that my grandmother had gotten out of Warsaw before the war and lost her entire family. And she would never. So Holocaust was never really talked about in my family.
Right.
And yet, it haunted us on some level because she felt guilty that she didn't get them out before everything, went so bad, became so bad. And I do feel like this is still a book that's timely. Do you also have that sense? Very
timely. There's so much, as you know, so much hate in our country, in this world now, for everybody. I know we are such a broken apart world, but this virulent anti-Semitism. People hate Jews, they hate, people of color, they hate people, but there's so much hate. And this is a man who, he grew from that hate. He could have had choices. That's my part, we have choices in our lives. He could have been a bitter, angry man and hated all Germans and he was not that. The thing was, I think that what I found out later, when I realized he had been writing to so many of us children all over the world, is that we were able to help him continue being a parent. Very thing that he identified with more than anything in the Holocaust, in the Auschwitz, he told this young man, call me Papa, for that's who I am. So he kept his identity, being a father, before he even knew that his daughters were killed. And so it carried through when he found out that his daughters were dead. So devastating. But the fact that Meet, his assistant, rescued the diary and all her words, he realized it, and she said, I want to go on living after my death, which he wanted to honor his daughter. He honored all of us by validating us as young people. We were all needing his guidance and his love. And he took time for a world of us to guide us. And that got him back to life, I believe. But he also got all of us back to life as well. Amazing stories. I know some of them. Some of them he actually saved their lives just by being, guiding them out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just being there when they needed somebody, right? And being,
exactly.
Wow. And
so when I finally met him, it's just, and he opened up this huge cupboard door, and I saw ceiling to floor, boxes and boxes and boxes of letters from children all over the world. I was blown away because he made me feel so important, but he did that to all of us. He validated every one of us.
So it's an amazing, this whole notion that I write to someone because I feel that need, and that actually helps them. And then there's a reciprocation of them being able to write back to me and perhaps others, and finding a new kind of meaning and purpose in that. And
that's right.
Yeah. One of the things I love about the book too is, and if you're just joining us, let me do this. This is the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Denver, The Stream, and I am talking to Cara Wilson-Granat about her book, Tree of Hope, her relationship with Otto Frank. If you've never read the Anne Frank diary, right, the Diary of Anne Frank, if you've never read that story, go get it. It's a life-changing book, much like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. It's a life-changing book, and the fact that you had a relationship with him is amazing. Also, if you're listening, you can comment. Go to Facebook, go to the Dr. Elisa Show. It is live right now there, and you can comment. And if you have a question, you can ask a question. If you just want to let us know you're out there, you can also do that. I think that's the best place for you to go, is the Dr. Elisa Show on Facebook. Okay, so Cara, this sort of reciprocity that happens when we reach out to people, because we don't know what they need. Like, they may get a letter from us, and that may change their life, their perspective on themselves. Correct?
That's right. Well, it's not conditional. Love is not conditional. It's basically, I can love you, and you may not say that you love me back, but for the act of me loving you brings me to another level. I feel good loving you. I feel good writing to you. I feel good expressing myself to you. It would be great if it's reciprocal. It isn't always that way.
That's right.
But it makes you feel good to be able to have a forum, a place to be able to express that.
Right.
And he did that for all of us.
And again, I think this is so timely. I was talking to one of my girlfriends the other night, and we were commenting. I was saying, I've heard I love you from people more in the last 2 years than I think I've heard it most of my life. And I think we all need that right now. And from just friends, from significant others, from whoever, we need that affirmation, and not just the words. We need an action or something that goes to make us realize it's real. And
that's right.
And I think writing letters was powerful. So what I'd like to do is go through, it's the chapter 10 in your book, Shared Lessons, and I'd like to go through some of those, if it's okay with you, to talk about those. So the first one, go ahead.
Quickly, I forgot to say, and I wanted to say, the meaning behind the Tree of Hope.
Oh yeah, talk about that.
In the 60s, when I was writing to Otto, and everything was, we had Vietnam War, we had race riots. These are things that were unfathomable to me. The assassinations of President Kennedy, Martin Luther King, when Robert Kennedy, there was one after the other, and I wrote to him and I said, I don't know why you have so much hope for the world, because I have none. I will never, ever bring a child into a world this cruel. And he wrote back to me and he said, Cara, even if you believe the end of the world will be imminent, you still plant a tree today. He said, you must never, ever, ever give up hope.
Wow.
And a few months later, for my birthday, I received a card from Otto Frank that said, trees have been planted in Israel, and my name from Otto Frank. And he knew that would get to me because my belief in life is nature. That's what keeps me alive. That's what keeps me going. And so for him to plant trees in my name, which I continue doing for everybody, is it couldn't have been a better way to tell me to not give up hope. It was my choice.
Right. That is amazing, right? That
Yes.
there are so many stories about that. That old Jewish story of somebody planting a fig tree and somebody coming along and saying, you're never going to get figs from that tree. Like, why are you bothering? And the woman planting the tree turns and looks at another tree and said, my grandmother planted that one, and I have figs. And so my grandchildren will have figs from this one. It's a continuation of life when we plant trees.
There is, and I didn't realize it, that there's something in our heritage in the Torah that said, if the Messiah was coming and you had seedlings in your hand, you wait before you greet him, and you plant the seedlings first.
Right.
And I just love that.
Right.
So yes.
Yes. Do the thing that will help the future generation. And
That's
then
right.
and then run off and right, yeah. Then do that other thing. I know, I do love that. I think that the Jewish tradition is profoundly practical on some level. So what I'd like to do is just go through a few of these.
Okay.
We'll see how much time we have. Again, if you've just joined me, this is the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Denver, the stream, and I am talking to Cara Wilson-Granat, who's the author of The Tree of Hope, a book about her relationship, her long-term sort of granddaughter-grandfather relationship with Otto Frank, who was the father of Anne Frank. So in here, the first one, let's just go through them, is it doesn't matter. And one of the things you have in here that I highlighted is holding on to hatred and revenge is like taking poison and hoping it kills the other person. Right?
That's right.
And so can you just talk a little bit about how that lesson is alive in your life, about it doesn't matter?
It's almost my mantra.
Okay.
And it was something that Otto said to me when I was asking him about the pain that he went through.
Mm-hmm.
And we won't go through any of that. We talked about betrayal and all of that stuff. And he turned to me, do you know who betrayed you and everything? He just said it doesn't matter. And it shocked me because I didn't expect that. But what I realized is that he was so right. Mm-hmm. Because what mattered was life. You can go back there and dig it up and be bitter and angry. And there are many people that never get over what they go through. We all go through horrible stuff. The world is in terrible pain. But I'm a thriver junkie. I watch people who get through the worst aspects of their life and they rescue somebody else. They save somebody. They teach somebody. They lift somebody from the very pain.
Uh-oh, I think you froze. Okay, there you are. You froze for a minute, so go on.
But I learned from others that go through pain, and he was that. He could have been bitter and angry and hateful, and he was not that. He was not that. Many of his correspondents were German children.
Wow.
And he just said it doesn't matter, and the doesn't matter resonated with me. When I go off into a tangent about the world, I have to stop and say, okay, really, what matters? What matters is what's before us. Our loved ones, our health, loving,
Yeah.
You know, nature,
Right.
animals, you know, being present in the moment. That's all that we have.
That's all we have. And then focusing on the choices that, and we'll get to this in a minute, but we all have a choice in every moment of how to live. And we can live with this hatred and anger, or we can live with hope and a vision forward.
Exactly.
Right? So then, and I love this one, the next one you have is to just tell the story. And to see yourself as a storyteller, and that is a gift you have for others. I love that. And was that clearly resonated with you because you are a storyteller, but can you expand on that a bit for us?
Well, I love that so much. I mean, for most of my life, I love being the voice of others. I started in advertising and radio, and you know, you can't sell a product unless you get the voice of the client and the product, and no matter how crazy it is. But it's always stepping outside of ourselves. When you're a storyteller, you're not in your ego. So when I get up on a stage and I start feeling I'm going to have a panic thing going, or do I look all right? Is it sounding all right? Or what? This inner voice, and I'm very much this Otto Frank's voice saying to me, "This is not about you. Just tell the story. You're a storyteller. You're a channel. We need you to tell this story." When I hear that, I step outside myself. It's not about me. Each one of us are storytellers. Each one has a story to tell. I could stop anybody on the street and say, "Oh, I've met that thing. I have nothing to say." And before I know it, there's a story, because that's what we are. We are stories and storytellers. But when we step outside of ourselves, our own ego, and with the channel to the story, we really are the storytellers. That's what we're here for.
So in some ways, each of us is a living embodiment of a story.
That's
and
right.
that the world needs that story for whatever reason, right?
Yes, you know, and reading to a child, you know, I've read to my own children and now grandchildren. You can't sit there thinking, "Oh, how do I?" No. They want to hear the story. They want to hear the story, and you get to animate it and tell the story, and then you ask questions, and you have this wonderful feeling, you know, back and forth, because you're telling a story. It's not about you, and it's a delight. I encourage anybody who's afraid to read to children, and they'll realize they are storytellers.
Which is just this amazing concept to me, that it is simply, and I completely understand that. There are so many traditions that is how the tradition is taught, right?
That's right.
Is through story, because we resonate with that.
That's right.
Okay, so you kind of touched on this next one, but I just want to go back to it a bit because it really struck me, which is write to anyone. And I have to say, on this radio show, I've had people on the show who I never thought would respond if I wrote to them. And I wrote and I said, I read your book, or I saw your show, or whatever. I'd love to have you on. And I've amazing responses. Where is that something he said, or was that just something you learned because you did write to him?
It was something in me. I think it's just something in me that I always, like I said, I love to read, and I love fantasy, and I love fairy tales, and I always thought I could write all the main characters, and you know, and the stories, and Scout, and Atticus Finch, and you know, Tom Sawyer, and all of these people. They're to me, they were real. But Otto Frank was a real human being, and he had, and I wanted to talk to him, but there was something in me, unfiltered, that believed that I needed to learn from these people. And also, it's something I strongly have believed since the beginning, that we're all equal. There's nobody who is to be revered. We are respected. Oh my God, there's so many people that love, and maybe you idolize them, but they're human beings. And they're people, if you can get through people who scream them, they have something to teach you, and you can learn from them. So I see us all as equal in every single way. And if you want to write this somebody, write it, do it.
It's an amazing, I think, concept to release the notion of hierarchy in our world, right? This person is more important. This person is, I mean, the truth is there's always going to be people more attractive and more intelligent and more whatever than I am, more prominent, but they're all still human. And
That's
it
right.
is that humanness that is the great equalizer, right?
That's exactly.
And so,
It's the language of
yeah.
heart.
And that goes back to how each of us have an important story to tell.
That's right. We do. Everybody.
Mm-hmm. That's just
Everybody.
kind of, so that takes me into one of your next points in here, which is this art of validation. Because when I realize we're equal, and I tell my story, and I write somebody else, I'm validating myself and the other person at the same time. And your experience with Otto Frank was that he validated who you were in the moment, right?
That's
And
right.
so talk about the power of that, of validating how you were validated and how we can validate each other.
Well, that's huge for me because I knew I had been writing to him for nearly 20 years. And when we finally met in Basel in person, and he showed me all these boxes of letters, which blew my mind. And then he had me sit down and he took a huge box and he put it in front of me and he said, "And these are your letters." And he had saved all my letters.
Wow.
And that will make me cry every single time because I couldn't believe it. You know, to me, the letters, not what they said had any import. To me, they're just sort of like, oh my God, you know. But it didn't matter because he validated me and he validated every single person that wrote to him. We all matter to him. This was a validation to me of the highest. That you kept my letters, you kept my words, and you didn't think they were ridiculous, which I thought, you know, in some ways. But he validated that. And so to me, when somebody gives me, they can give me a feather or a rock or something that means something.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you know, I have so many rocks and things around here because of the validation of a heart. You know, it means so much. And let's go back to Meek, his assistant. After they were captured, she went up into the attic, and they thought, you know, Nazis thought they had taken everything of value away. But all across the floor were Anne's writings and the red check diary. She gathered it all with another assistant, and they were saying, all the helpers said, "Oh my God, it's Anne's writing. Let's read it." And she said, no. These are Anne's. And when she comes back, I will give this to her, but nobody reads anything. She was very private and she was very personal and cared about her. So that to me was the epitome of validation. Meek's respect for this young girl kept the diary of Anne Frank for the future. She never read a word of it. She put all of it in the desk. She waited when they found out that Anne died with her sister Margaret. She didn't even tell Otto when he returned. She waited until they found out. And when they found out, he definitely died. That's when she gave everything to him.
Wow.
So to me, that's the epitome of validation. Respect.
Wow. This is, you know, I keep reflecting to when this is taking place, right?
Right.
That this is, yeah, like this nightmare time.
Right.
Horrific things happening, and that on some level, the only way you can be safe is to be cruel to somebody else,
That's
right? And that here are people who are risking their lives, knowing how sort of what can happen, and still acting with honor and respect and love through all of it, right? It's interesting how that choice is available to us.
It is. That's
right?
beautiful. It's true. That's really true. Because these people that we're talking about never lost their grace.
Right.
And they could have.
Yes. And I have to say, it amazes me and inspires me on a couple ways. I think we've all been in situations where somebody said to us, you know, somebody betrays you at work or whatever, and they say, "I had no choice." And I always reflect back and go, you always have a choice. There are consequences, but you always have a choice. Right?
You really do. You do.
So, okay, so this is, and again, if you've just joined, you've missed the first half of a really great show. So it's a conversation with Cara Wilson-Granat on her book, Tree of Hope, about her grandfather, basically, relationship with Otto Frank, and the lessons she learned there, and how this is still relevant today. In fact, if it's relevant any time, I believe this is relevant now, because we're all struggling so hard, and we all have the opportunity to choose what we do with that struggle. So one of the other things in here that got me was this idea of being a rock in a wave. And of course, I love rocks. I'm a geologist. I love the ocean. I love water. I mean, like, the imagery of this really struck me. And you talk about becoming your own rock, that there's a stillness within you when that happens, and there's peace, and the ability to experience the waves of whatever my life is hit with, whatever washes over you. So this is so relevant now and so poignant. Something happens, we are frightened, we give up hope, we despair. Talk to me about how I become a rock in the wave.
Well, one of, like I said, my greatest teacher, besides Otto Frank, of course, is nature. And my other book is Strength from Nature. I learn from nature always. It never stopped. The greatest teacher of all. And I used to live by the ocean, and I wrote about this. I would stand by the ocean, and there was this huge, like, boulder rock, and I would watch it. And through the seasons, the waves would either crash and be tumultuous, and then they'd go away. And then other times it would be still, and it would be like a lake, and the rock would be glistening, and there are all these little creatures all over it. And night and day, heat and cold, rock remained. No matter what was happening, there was this basic stillness. And I thought, we can be the waves. We can be passionate and excited and filled with anger and hate and all these things, but we aren't the waves. We're the rock. If we remain the rock, we can still feel life around us, but we don't lose ourselves in the waves of life. And there's a difference. So it's not like we're impervious to change or cold or heat or anything that happens, but we can remain still within it. And when I remember that, and I don't hardly ever, but I really have to work on it, I feel centered, balanced. And yes, these horrible things are happening. As you know, when you're empathetic for the world, you tend to lose yourself in the pain and sorrow. But it doesn't do you or anybody good at all. So if you go back to being that rock and saying, yes, this is happening, I can gather strength and maybe help somebody. Maybe I'll be a landing for somebody to lean on me. But I'm not going to be a wave and lose myself. And there is a difference. So I say, when I go back to that rock in the wave, I feel centered. I feel balanced again.
So I can hear all that, and I know I've had times of doing that, but it's not easy. It is.
No, it isn't.
It's so much easier to be swept up in the fear of the world,
That's right.
in the terror around us, in our own human frailty, right, and weakness. And so, do you have
fear?
Yes.
Yep.
Do you have a way when you suddenly realize? I love the imagery here. Oh my gosh, I'm now identifying with the waves.
Right.
How do I become the rock again? Do you focus on gratitude or hope or breathing? Do you have something you do that you can help us with?
Well, I have to remind myself, because I was just told yesterday, you're full of fear. And I am. I'm very fearful about a lot of things. That's part of being Jewish, I think. I don't know. But I just, I let that fear carry me and I give power, which that's waves. So when I'm really present and I think, okay, now I'm full of fear right now. Walking helps a lot, getting out in nature. Yoga, Tai Chi. And now I love Tai Chi, and I learned from a master teacher years ago, and he had this exercise. And when I remember it, when I really work on it, it helps me. So he's just saying, okay, you picture yourself in the center, and either surround yourself with like a golden light or a bubble or a membrane. You're in the center. If somebody says horrible things to you, they're so mean, there's such cruelty, but it doesn't, you answer, thank you. And somebody says something wonderful to you, and kind and loving and complimentary, and you say, thank you. You don't change. Stay within that world. So it's around you. You haven't lost yourself in all these things around you. There's still the rock within there. When I remember that, and I don't, it helps. And also, I always have little rocks. I'll hold on to one, and that always sends me, or a pen. I love pens. Something that will ground me back to me and remind me that I'm not lost, that I can't save the world. I can't lose myself in the sorrow. The only thing I can do is be me and be present. That's it. And that's hard.
It just reminds me through 2020 when I was hiking alone, and
Right.
in 2021 when I was hiking alone because I'd had to put my dog down. On every hike, I'd end up picking up a rock, and
Yes.
and hiking with a rock, and this was like my hiking buddy. And at the end of the hike, I would take a picture of my shoes and the rock and say, "This hike brought to you by feldspar, or granite, or whatever it was, basalt." And it was that sense of the earth is with me.
That's beautiful.
Right? Yes. Interesting.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. No, and I know that I've done it forever. Rocks really do give me, they ground me. I mean, I remember once when my husband Peter and I were walking in a thunderstorm, raining like crazy, and it was really actually fun. More and more, but the whole time I was collecting these rocks and putting them in my pockets. So by the time we went back to the lodge, I was laying down, I could barely walk, and my pants were falling off, And he said, "Take the rocks out." I said, "No, I love them."
Yeah, we're clearly kindred spirits around that. I come home from every hike with rocks and every visit to the ocean with shells. It just
Absolutely.
it's just what I do. So we talked about this tree of hope. So I want to we already talked about that. I really we've got some time left, focus on this notion of choice that we have in life. Again, we're looking at this horrific situation, incredible cruelty that is being supported across Europe, not by everyone,
Right.
clearly, but by a huge majority, right? And how easily people get swept up in a fear that then misleads them and guides them to justifying something cruel because it feels like it's the only choice they have to become safe. And
That's
I do
right.
believe that that's right, that it is fear that guides that. So I want to talk about choice, but one of the things in here, just as ripples spread out when a single pebble is dropped into water, the actions of individuals can have far-reaching effects. So I want to talk about the power of our choices on others, the way that if somebody says something cruel and you say thank you, have you noticed the effect on others you have by being in that centered place of choice?
All the time. All the time. To me, we can go out, I go out in the world and I know this person, if I scrape it, probably hates Jews, or politically we don't agree in any way, or blah, blah, blah. But at the moment, we're smiling together. Maybe we're laughing over animals. Maybe somebody's walking a dog. Maybe we comment on a tree. What I find is the great equalizer is nature. So I meet and talk to many people, along the trails, along the paths. And we're not saying, excuse me, who did you vote for, why, blah, blah. We are at one in the world. To me, that to me is religion. That is beautiful. And we are validating each other. And we do have choices as to how You want to be with each other. I can walk away feeling so filled with love and happiness just by a conversation I've had with somebody. That is just nothing about, whatever, the river, whatever. And with many of the talks I give, I have a big basket of pebbles. And I say to them, you are this little pebble. And come up and pick out the one that resonates with you. I'm thinking everybody, adults, children, everybody. You pick out the one that resonates nicely. Now, this is you in your hands, and you have a choice. When you throw this pebble in the water, it sends out these ripples. It's either going to be negative or positive. And your ripples of effect affect me, you, everybody around. If you're in a rotten mood and you come that, you wake up, you're angry, you're miserable, you're depressed, and then you say, why is everybody so down? I just don't understand it. Because we're doing that. When I remember years ago, a therapist told me, you're the beacon to all the stuff you don't want. So when you change, that will change. And it's not like it's magical, but it does happen. And we can just a smile, just making somebody feel good, just laughing together over just being silly. To me, laughter is the best medicine. You have embraced each other, and that's a way of making choices. How are you going to deal with it? Now, it's easy to say. You hear horrible things happening. People's houses are burned down. Terrible things happen. You lose children, animals. There's nothing light about this. It's tragedy, but there are people, and there's one of the things I've written, I'm going to rewrite it. I probably can't say it. It takes a lot of SHIT to make a garden grow. It takes a lot of garbage to make a garden grow. Right. So you use that that compost, the tears, and you nurture your life. You take it. When I had really bad times years ago and lost everything material in my life and reports and everything out there, I thought I was going to die. I was convinced I was going to die. But I had to learn, and it was Otto Frank's example, that if he could face plant and get up and plant a tree, so would I. And honestly, those are the choices we make. And I would love to help people plant forests or do anything, and they do. People rally. They do rally, and they do find, if they're supported in love, they can start planting their garden even through tragedy. Mm-hmm. It's never taken lightly. So it's not the baggage we have. It's the way we carry it, how we handle it. We're never going to get out of here without pain.
That's right.
But no, it's how we balance that. For me, I don't know that it's the choice. You always have a choice. And I have to do that all the time. I talk about hope because I fight hopelessness. There's a darkness in me that says, why? And I have to say, well, because. Mm-hmm. And the because shows me the way.
So sometimes acknowledging the darkness is real and is part of life is a doorway towards hope. This is part of life. My job is to be a ripple of hope in the world.
That's right.
And perhaps that one ripple will change everything. There's this story, I'm hoping I can tell it quickly. I don't know if you've heard it, but there was two birds on a tree in a snowstorm, and it's a dove talking to a hawk, I think, and the dove says to the hawk, how many snowflakes does it take to break a branch? And the hawk says, how can you count? And the dove said, it only takes one when you've reached a certain level, right? After this many thousand snowflakes. The dove flies away. The hawk is sitting there thinking about this, and the snow is falling, and as she watches, one snowflake hits the branch below her, and the branch breaks off. And the message is that perhaps we are that last snowflake. We don't know. It could be my little act of kindness that changes the entire world. And that's, I think, what I got from your book. Does that resonate with you?
Very much. I think that's absolutely beautiful. It doesn't take a huge, big deal. It really does. It's really all about loving ourselves and the moment we're in, respecting it, embracing it, cherishing it, seeing it, embracing the senses that we have, the six senses, the just hearing, touching, tasting. I thank God for any, my senses. Those are the things that we embrace. And when I go there, I feel back to where I'm supposed to be. Makes sense to me. There is the lightness in the dark.
So this message from Otto Frank is embrace life. Is embrace life, right? Horrible things happen, but embrace life.
Embrace life in every way, because that was his choice. He knew that. And when he thought his daughters, when he found out they had died, and then me brought him the diary, and he opened it for the first time and read her words for the first time. Wow. Can imagine, it took him forever to get through it, but he realized that his daughter wanted to live. So it was the choices that he made saved us all in so many ways. So many ways. Wow. His positive choices to live and to love were the ripples of effect for all of us.
So we're coming to the end of our time, and what I'd like is, because I know it inspires you, nature inspires you, writing inspires you, hope inspires you. Do you have a message that you do want to share, like a pebble, that you want to share with the rest of the listeners right now, because people are struggling. What's my life meaning? What's my direction? What am I going to do? If you were going to hand somebody a pebble, what would you say to them?
It's a good question, because I ask myself that all the time. It's not being naive or Pollyannish. It's basically grounding ourselves back to, what do you think your purpose is? I've asked people, what is your word for this year? What is what do you think, if God whispered in your ear, what we say, whoever we believe in, whatever, to say you're here for a reason, a purpose. When I go back to that belief that I'm here for a reason, and it can be taken away from me any second. But right now, why? Why am I here? Those things, why am I here? What am I supposed to learn from this? And that's something that has helped me greatly. When you're in the middle of something devastating, horrible, and you back away, say, what am I supposed to learn from this? The lesson comes up. I mean, it is immediate. Right. Immediate. I just heard that this family, they had it in the news, where everything, they hated their couch, they tried to get rid of it, they didn't get rid of it. And the only thing that survived was this stupid couch. And they were all sitting on it. And I thought it was so beautiful. I mean, there was something about it. I say that basically, take a pebble, hold it in your hand, and just think about, why am I here? What makes me happy? Why, even if I'm terribly sad for so many reasons, what really makes me happy? And to me, it's a rush of images. My children, my grandchildren, my husband, my world, breathing, walking,
Absolutely.
They're flooded by gratitude.
Right.
And that little pebble can help ground you when you feel lost.
Right. And I have to say, I'm pretty sure my word for the year is gratitude. I'm pretty sure that's what that's what's helping me through, and that's what's where I'm starting. We'll see how that evolves. So believe it or not, you and I have spent almost an hour talking. And if you've been listening, I want to thank you for listening to the Dr. Elisa Show on KUHS Denver, The Stream. If you missed it, please, missed some of it, you can be able to catch it live on my website, elisarobin.com, on my Facebook site. I'll post it there. I'll post it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on you can get in touch with me in any of those places, also on Instagram. I'm easy to find. I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear that you're reading my book and what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the show. I'd love to hear how you're doing. Just how are you doing? Get the message of today. Reach out and talk to somebody. Write me a letter. I would truly, truly love to hear from you. Send me a note. And then join me back in 2 weeks. I have an amazing woman who's a mentor and a speaker and a friend, Allie Hill. She'll be here talking about launching our own lives in a different way, and perhaps in a business way, and finding our power that way. And until then, I just want you to remember that the show is about igniting a spark within you, and that we each have that flame. So until 2 weeks from now, let your inner flame help you stay well, stay curious, and please stay inspired.